Hello everybody, this is Emmanuel with What's Your Story. Today I have a wonderful guest. He's a member of my church and I believe he's the executive pastor at the road on Chapel Hills Malls. Funny man, obviously Italian, he got that little accent going. And his name is Vince. How do you say your last name?
Dacchioli. And just remember, I'm your pastor.
You see what I'm talking about?
Can I greet him in my native language?
Sure,
Hey,
go ahead.
how you doing? And that's the only Italian I know. I'm sorry.
He's New York Italian. Don't fall for him.
You don't want to get me started on the Italian stuff.
Oh yeah, he's a troublemaker since birth, by the way. But anyway, I don't want to reveal too much about your bad days. I'm playing.
I got some bad days.
So this is Vince. We're just gonna start from the beginning. When you were a kid growing up in Long Island, I believe.
Yep, I was born in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Yeah, Rhode Island, and actually, I was only 8 years old when we left, so
Okay.
I don't remember a lot about Rhode Island, other than it was very ethnic back then, because that was back in the mid '40s, and it was a big Italian family. But when I was 8, my mom and dad took myself, my little brother, who's just 2 years younger than me, and my little sister had just been born, and we drove across the country in an old Nash Rambler. Some of your viewers probably wouldn't recognize an old Nash Rambler, but it was a bad car. And across the country we went to visit our family in California. So from Rhode Island all the way to Southern California, Burbank.
Wow, that's a long drive.
And we thought as kids that we were only going there for a 2-week vacation. But as it turned out, we never went back.
Ooh.
And I was 14 years old before I found out the truth. And the truth was that Mom and Dad were actually running from the law. And it wasn't kind of a Bonnie and Clyde thing or anything like that. They'd gotten into some financial trouble, and the family in California said, hey, why don't you guys, or in Rhode Island, said, why don't you guys go to California, start life over again, we'll send the furniture later. Well, in those days, you could get away with that. You could never do that.
Yeah, today.
So they had a little bit of a bad experience back there. So I was a little boy in Southern California, grew up there.
And you Italian from Rhode Island. Do you met any of the mob families? I mean, at least.
I actually, that's a really intense part of my story. Of course, you've probably heard some of my background. There's actually a half-hour documentary on our website that tells a little bit about my story because it was so colorful. I actually had an Uncle Louie.
Oh.
And my Uncle Louie was busted by Ed Meese personally when he was Attorney General under Ronald Reagan. That's how high up he was.
Wow.
And he was a hitman. And
Do you remember what family?
He was my mom's brother, younger brother. The FBI, in fact, you could Google him right now, and if you Google Louie the Couch, you'll find my uncle. They nicknamed him Louie the Couch because they would wiretap his apartment. And so he'd be out working at night, and then during the day he'd be laying on the couch. And at least they thought he was on the couch because they couldn't see anything. And he'd be watching soap operas, and he'd be yelling at the TV and saying, "Why did you marry that bum, you idiot?" And the FBI was hysterical, man. And so they nicknamed him Louie the Couch. But here's the serious side. Here's the serious side. I was an 18-year-old boy in a courtroom one day. My uncle was on trial for 26 hits.
Wow.
The prosecutor comes in and asks the judge to dismiss the jury because he had to make an announcement the jury wasn't allowed to hear. We didn't know what was going on. I was just a kid. And the announcement was, Your Honor, the star witness against Lou, along with his wife, were shotgunned to death in their hotel room in Las Vegas last night. We have no case. I'm the guy going, yes.
Wow.
That's where I came from.
Wow.
Were it not for the grace of God, I'd be dead.
Yeah. Did you want to go into that life at the time?
It was romantic. I didn't know anything about a relationship with God, obviously. I grew up in the Catholic Church at a time when they didn't even speak English. It was either Latin or Italian. Didn't know anything that the Bible really had to say because the priest would read it, and I didn't understand anything.
Wow.
So I didn't have any context for there being a God. So I was impressed more by the world around me and the people I surrounded myself with, and I was just a fun-loving, out-of-control, actually pretty spoiled, prideful little boy.
Wow.
And so as I became more and more influenced by those kind of role models, I came so dangerously close to going the wrong way.
So going to California kind of helped you because it took you away from that life, or are you still
No,
in contact?
that all the things I'm explaining to you actually happened in California. When I was only 8 when I went to California, so
Oh, yeah.
I was just a little kid back there. But then
Wow.
as I grew up in Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
and then my uncle was part of the Hollywood and Vegas crowd. I mean, he would hang out with Sinatra and all those guys, and he was really big time, big time.
Wow.
And that, as a boy growing up, you look at that and you go, wow.
Yeah.
This is the stuff movies are made out of, man. So you're kind of like,
Mm.
and then you don't realize the danger because the enemy is so
Yeah.
so
So what was the kind of diversion point where you're like, I don't want to go to that, I want to go this other way?
Well, that's a pretty long story, but the actual day that happened was I was fast forward many years. I was a store manager. I grew up in retail.
Okay.
And there was a restaurant right next door to the store that I managed, and my uncle would hang out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, Uncle Louie, yeah. And so I'd meet him there, after work, and we'd go hang out at the bar, and the bartender was a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lou came to me one day and said, I need you to go talk to the bartender and let him know that if he doesn't pay up, this is what's going to happen to him. And so when he asked me to do that, that's when I knew, hey, wait a minute, man, I'm getting in kind of deep here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I kind of push back and I say, I'm sorry, Uncle Lou, I just can't do that. I need to back away. And that was like a turning point for me. But up to that time, I was getting closer and closer to...
What was the motivation behind that decision?
Didn't even know the Lord. It was just, I just got to the point where I was scared. Like, this could be serious. I mean, if I get involved in this stuff, I could be arrested.
Yeah.
And I was married at the time. I met my wife right out of high school, Cindy.
Okay.
She was the first person, by the way, in the history of my family that wasn't Italian. It was really a culture shock for my family.
Yeah.
Cindy, now we've been married 54 years, of course, now. But we were 15, 16 when we met. But when we got married, neither one of us really knew anything about a personal relationship with Jesus. She converted to Catholicism to save face in my family. We got married in a Catholic church. And then in our early years of marriage, I was living my life, she was living her life. And she didn't know anything about my secret life. I mean, I was a womanizer. I was drugs, alcohol, lying, cheating, stealing, you name it. I did it. And I was like their king, man. But she didn't know anything about that secret life.
Yeah.
And so as we grew up in our marriage relationship, now we've got a couple of daughters. And as we were growing up, more and more of my secret life was harder and harder to hide.
Yeah.
There's a pastor friend of mine that used to say, ain't no such thing as a secret. By the way, let me repeat that. There's no such thing as a secret. It's a myth.
Okay.
First of all, God knows.
Yeah, true.
Okay?
Yeah.
But there comes a time in life, and you'll experience this, where others will get to know too. So we think we can hide stuff, and we can bury it, and keep it under wraps. But it's pretty difficult to do that. So I didn't know that, and I kept trying to bury stuff. And the more you try to bury stuff, the deeper you have to go.
Yeah,
The more lies, the more creative you have to be and try to develop. So I just kept living my life, and she was living her life, and all the people I surrounded myself were really not very good people.
So back to the decision that when you made to Uncle Louie no, was your wife, your family, was that part of the
They didn't
motivation?
know anything.
Was that did they motivate you at least to say no to
Yeah,
that
but
lifestyle?
it was fear. It was fear that I would get caught up in this to the point where I'd be found out and I'd be exposed, and I possibly could lose my wife, my 2 little girls at the time. But that's what caused me to kind of back away from Uncle Louie. But I still continued to do all the other bad things. It wasn't until I was curious about Christianity. What happened was, after we got married, I didn't go back to church.
Oh, okay.
My wife was searching, I was not. So her brother, Ted, who was a hero of mine, he used to grow marijuana in the backyard bird bath, and sell it at school. He was like my hero, man. So he got thrown in jail one night, and his mom bailed him out and threatened him that if he didn't go to this Campus Crusade for Christ meeting, she wasn't going to help him anymore, So he decided to go, and he came back completely transformed.
Wow.
He says, wow, I can't wait to go back to school, tell my friends they don't need their drugs anymore, they need Jesus. And it was like an amazing transformation.
Yeah.
So he comes home, And he shares all that with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
He leads my wife to the Lord.
Wow.
Which really ticked me off. I mean, I was ticked. I said, are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm a born-again Christian. I said, get away from me, right? Well, she was smart enough not to push it. What she did is she went out and got about 950 million people praying for me. I didn't have a chance.
Wait a minute.
And I didn't know.
That's the key right there.
I didn't have a chance. Okay? So anyway, she's living her life. I'm living my life. But I was watching her, and there was something different about her.
Okay.
Even as kind of a hardened guy, I was watching her, and she seemed to have a bounce in her step. She seemed to have more joy in her life. She seemed to be more at peace, and it was like, wow, what is this? So I decided to go with her one night out of curiosity.
Do you remember the church?
No, it wasn't the church. That's why I went. It was a safe place. Okay, it's an old converted sorority house off the UCLA campus in Westwood, California.
Okay.
And during that time, this was back in the 70s, a young man by the name of Hal Lindsey would speak there. Now, some of your viewers maybe are too young to remember Hal Lindsey, but he wrote a book back then called The Late Great Planet Earth. And very, very well-known guy. He still is on television. He's in his 80s now.
Wow.
But I went there to hear him. And got there, and the place was packed out with young people. It was like an amazing thing. It's like, wow, what is going on here? Because I'd never been exposed to any really evangelical, biblical kind of teaching.
How old were you?
I was probably in my mid-30s, probably.
Okay, wow.
Mid-30s, mid to late 30s. So I went there, and this man comes out named Mike Bartell, who's a dear friend of mine to this day, but back then I didn't know him. He was an ex-Army Ranger guy, an ex-motorcycle gang leader, mafia, assassin in the Army that used to go behind the enemy lines in Vietnam and kill his target and come back over again. He's one of those guys the government say doesn't exist. That's who he was. So he gives his testimony. And, you know, I used to call people who were Christians back then Jesus freaks or RNs, religious nuts. But, I mean, I listened to this guy's testimony and I'm thinking, whoa, man, there's no way I'm going to call him a Jesus freak. You know? And so he shares his testimony. And then Hal Lindsey comes out and he opens the Bible and he starts to share out of the Bible. And I'm listening to him and I've never heard anything like this before. Because remember, in the Catholic Church, they didn't even speak in English.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, the Bible says that? Are you kidding me? And so little by little, as I kept going back, it started to sink in a little bit. And then one day, driving home, I decided to say the sinner's prayer all on my own.
Wow.
I had learned enough about what to say. I'm driving home one day and I said, you know what, Lord, if you're real, I mean, I'm still hedging my bet, you know.
Yeah.
I want what these people have. I want to accept you in my heart, and I meant it. I got home and I shared that with Cindy, and of course, as you might expect, she was ecstatic.
Yeah.
However, if she were here, and when we share together, we do a lot of couples events. It's at this point that she would share that the next 8 years would become a living nightmare.
Wow.
Now here's the key. And probably the key to this entire interview is what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I accepted Jesus as my Savior, not my Lord.
Did you repeat that for the...
I'm going to repeat it for them, but I'm looking at you right now.
Okay.
He was my Savior, not my Lord.
Okay.
He would not become Lord of my life for 8 more years. Now here's what I want to say to your audience.
Okay.
There are 2 gods, not one. Over here is a God that we want. Over here is the God who is. They are not the same God. And we're living in a world today where, unfortunately, a very high percentage of people who call themselves Christians are pursuing this God. And you pursue this God at your peril. This is the God who says, you'll make it if you're a good person. I'll help you if you help yourself. You can change that Bible verse and make it say anything your little heart desires to suit your unique lifestyle. You pursue that God at your peril. God is real. He lives in heaven, and he has an opinion. And guess whose opinion don't count? We don't like that.
No.
We don't like that. We've been raised in a kind of a culture where it's all about me. It's all about my needs. So I want God to be shaped in my image. And that's where my problem was. And it wasn't until 8 years later, and I'm in a hotel room in Dallas, Texas, that my wife calls. And during the 2 or 3 days I had been gone, she learned every dirty lie of my life. You know how someone, they discover something about you and they go, wow, what's that? And then they start uncovering rocks and pieces and they begin to do a little journey and a little research. Well, unbeknownst to me, she'd discover every dirty lie. Affairs, different things I was doing, and I was sovereignly, listen, Emmanuel, 2,000 miles away when this happened. I believe that was God. Because I couldn't be there in person to manipulate this thing and make it come out my way, because I was good at that. Okay? I'd never been so scared. That's when the real fear hit in. That's the turning point for really getting serious about God. Was the first turning point was getting away from what I feared would be dangerous for me in a worldly sense.
Yeah.
Now this had to do with my eternal salvation. You know, I was getting to the point now where I at least knew that God was real, but I wasn't leaning into Him. And I had to make a decision. I'm going to get real, or I'm going to lose my wife. She had every reason to leave me, and take my 2 little girls at the time with her. So that's when I decided I've got to get real about this, and went back, and she said, if there's going to be any chance for us, we're going to church. And of course I said, honey, whatever you want.
Wow.
We'll go to church. And that's when she had just begun attending a little church in Van Nuys, California. Many of your viewers wouldn't remember this church, but it's called Church on the Way.
Okay.
And it's a ministry at that time of a man by the name of Pastor Jack Hayford.
I know him.
Very well known man. And if it weren't for sitting under his ministry in his prime during those years, you know, I don't know where I'd be. We were very, very blessed. Went, got some counseling, stayed connected with that church, grew by leaps and bounds, got involved in a marriage class there, ended up teaching the marriage class a few years later. It was just an amazing turnaround for me. But it took my realizing that I was pursuing the wrong God, and I had to finally completely surrender. I was in the business world at the time, working my way up the ladder. I'm now to the point where I'm in my 40s and I'm vice president of a Fortune 500 company, very successful and growing in the Lord. And it was around that time that we ended up making the transition into the ministry, which I'm sure is what you want to hear about.
So, before I even asked about the ministry, when you were a kid, what did you want to do growing up?
I had no idea
what
I wanted to do.
So just landing in the business?
No, what happened with me, and I think that's probably pretty true of a lot of kids today, because in the days that when I was growing up, I mean, the career paths were pretty recognizable. I mean, you were either an engineer or you were civil service. I mean, manufacturing was a different world. Today, because of the whole communication revolution, I mean, there's just thousands more options, and that's why young people today, I can see how difficult it is for them to try to focus in on really what their calling is. Yeah. But there are two kinds of ideas here. One has to do with a vision that's shaped more by the world around me and my circumstances. But when you know God, there's a different element that comes in. I not only want to go in the pathway that I think might be fun or I might be wired for, but I want it to please the Lord. So how do I line those two things up? How do I discover that pathway that's also, interestingly, something that the Lord's affirming in my life? And in the early days, it wasn't so much that way. I just went the way that was convenient. So when I was 13 years old, my dad was a manager of a paint store. He hired me as a box boy. And so I mean, I wasn't a good student. I didn't get good grades. I just kind of bummed around. I liked to have fun. I was a goof off. But I could make some money, and I just stayed with that job, and I stayed with that company for probably 30 years. Worked my way all the way up to vice president and one of 5 guys running a Fortune 500 company in California. Wow! And it's all, and I never got a complete college degree. I went back to UCLA and got a lot of experience and information and education in the area of behavioral science. I never got a degree in it, but I got enough information to make me a pretty good leader and manager in my work environment. And they kept promoting me, and I rose up the ladder way.
Wow. So you've done that for 30 years, and then now you're born again, you and your wife are in a good place, in a beautiful church. You have the perfect environment to grow. What begins to lead you to start doing what you're doing now?
Well, in 1989, I found myself on the top floor of the Arco Towers in downtown Los Angeles. There are 2 big towers there. I was there with a battery of lawyers representing my company, and I was signing paperwork to borrow $200 million to protect my company from a hostile takeover. And I signed all the paperwork, went back to work, and then in the subsequent weeks that followed, I discovered there was really no threat of a hostile takeover. It was a ploy by the board to buy back 51% of the shares of the company to have controlling interest. And I didn't know this. So I began to see creep into this wonderful old Jewish run, right out of the old J.C. Penney mold. J.C. Penney, many people don't know this, he was a really on-fire Christian man. Oh. We had the same kind of Christian ethics, even though it was a Jewish-run company, at my company. But now different people were merging in and taking over, and the ethical norms were out the window. It was all about manipulation and their own personal gain and greed and all the things that creeps in if you're not careful. I began to see that, and I thought, wow, I'm not too sure about my future here. I had at the time probably $1.5 million in stock options, lost it all. I just decided it's time, I need to leave. And it was mutual. They agreed that I needed to leave too, because I was pressing them on their decisions and what they were doing. And so it was no longer a real compatible environment, but it was 1989, I'm at church on the way, and I'm thinking, my wife and I were teaching marriage classes at the time. We had 400 or 500 people in our marriage class. It was like a church within a church. Wow. And so I just started asking the question. That's when I really began to pursue God. Say, Lord, what do you want me to do? The Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. The NIV, which I sometimes refer to as the new Italian version, it's actually the new international version. What it says is where there's no revelation, the people cast off restraint. In other words, it's the idea that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I didn't want any road. I wanted the road God wanted me to be on. In fact, that inspired my first book, which was titled Wired to Work. It's still available. If you look it up and Google it, you can still get some old copies of it. I'm right now in the process of rewriting it and bringing it up to more contemporary. That book was written in the early 90s. But the whole idea is discovering the answer to the two most important questions in life. And this really gets, again, at the core of what you're trying to communicate, I think. And I'm really proud of you, by the way, for what you're doing here, Emmanuel. This is very important for people to understand. The two most important questions in life are these. How and why? And it works this way. In the context of understanding that God is real, the first question is, Lord, how did you make me, Vince, uniquely? In other words, Lord, when you look at me, what do you see? Man, I don't know anybody that wouldn't want the answer to that question. If you believe in God, it's like my Creator. Lord, who am I? It's all about my identity in Him. That's the most important question. First most important question. The second one is equally important. Okay, now that I know how you made me, why? Why? Now I know how you wired me, what my gifts are. We go into all that detail in our ministry for the last 25, 30 years. And now that I know all that, okay, why? What is the purpose? What are you funneling me into for my future? This is the most important thing any human being on planet Earth can get the answers to. And it formed the core of everything we've been doing at OnTarget Ministries since its inception in 1994. Wow. So I went on a journey. And I wanted to discover, how do I get the answer to these two most important questions? And one of the formulas that I've been trying to violate for most of my life says this: intimacy with God equal strength of vision. If I'm not willing to be intimate with my God, to be able to have the kind of relationship with Him to where I can hear His voice, sense His presence, I want to make a promise to your viewers right now. You will never discover God's purpose for your life. It is not going to happen. Because that's not the way God designed it. He didn't design it to drop signs along the roadway to point it. He wants a relationship with me. And through that relationship, He'll reveal to me His desire and where He wants to point my life for His glory. So I've been trying to violate that for a long, long time. So I developed our Men on Target seminars and informational series that we do for the last 30 years around those ideas.
We'll get you all the links, by the way.
It's just otm.co is the website. But anyway, a lot of stuff is there. But the whole idea is that I've got to get serious about my relationship with Him. And actually, in the early years of ministry, Emmanuel, I tried to shortcut that. And as a man, you know, we men need return on investment. And, you know, when I sit down and read my Bible or I pray, I want to feel like there's a return. And if the return is not immediate, it's easy for us to kind of like drift and go other places where I can get more of a return. So it takes discipline. It takes a lot of effort to really focus my life, to stay intentional about my relationship with Him, in order to discover His purpose, my destiny in Him. And that's where the desire of our heart, both with our men's ministry we do with couples, and especially now ministry, we do a lot of ministry with senior pastors. Because a lot of senior pastors have no vision.
True.
It's more of a vocation to them than it is really a calling. And so everything has to do with helping people discover the answer to those two questions.
So let's go back to in your 90s, because you said the ministry started in 94.
So here's what happened. And I'm sorry I interrupt your question, but I know the question already. So.
This is Vince. This is how Vince is.
You just have to be quiet and let me talk.
That is our relationship, to be honest.
I interview you. What got you into this?
I don't know, Vince.
No, here's what happened. So back to the experience with the company, and I'm now thinking, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we didn't know what we were going to do. So the first thing we thought of was maybe we should lean toward ministry because we like it so much, you know. Maybe we should start a couples ministry or something like that, but we didn't know how to do that. And so what happened is a mutual friend at Church on the Way introduced me to a man by the name of Dick Eastman. Dick Eastman is the international president today still of Every Home for Christ, an international ministry. Well, I didn't know Dick. Dick and I knew of each other because we both went to the same church, but we didn't know each other. He had just taken over the ministry of Every Home for Christ 3 months before. And so he was merging his little ministry in with that bigger ministry, and they needed someone just like me, but they didn't know me. So when I got introduced to Dick, we met, we talked, and I told Dick a little bit about my background, and Dick is thinking, man, what you bring is exactly, I think, what we're looking for. So, do you mind if I have our headhunter talk to you? And I said, sure. We met with the headhunter, and we're having a conversation over the phone, or in person, actually. It was at the lunch. And I'm telling him my story, and his eyes are coming out of his head, man. He's like, you got to be kidding me, Vince. You have no way of knowing what Dick is looking for. But everything you're touching on is exactly what this ministry is needing. And I said, wow, okay, well, what does that mean? He said, well, it means I got to go back and talk to Dick. He goes and talks to Dick. And Dick is excited, and so he wants to make me an offer. And he says, I'd like you to consider coming on as our executive vice president and CEO, which was very unusual at the time. The board wanted me to report directly to the board. Dick is a prayer guy. He really is not an administrative CEO type guy, and they really needed that. So for 5 years, I was with that organization as their executive vice president, CEO. I'm the one responsible for moving that organization from Southern California to Colorado Springs. And we moved here in '91 with about 30 families. And so we got here, and that was a wonderful journey. I was able to really help them re-envision the ministry and get it going. And then in 1994 is when the transition happened that you're looking for, I think. And that is when I really felt the Lord was calling me to move from being an executive with this ministry to starting OnTarget Ministries. So that journey, going from Every Home for Christ and starting a brand new ministry, was really new to me because it's scary, Emmanuel. I mean, you don't have any money, you don't have an infrastructure, you have nothing. Well, that's what led to probably one of the more important chapters in my book, Wired to Work, that deals with how do you know that you know that you know that this is something God is ordaining. And what I share in the book, I need to share with you viewers because this is really important. You need to line up 4 things prayerfully, before you can be sure that God is in it. And here are the 4 things. In my pursuit of God, in my intimacy with Him, in my experiencing Him in my life, which I need to be doing, number 1 is what I believe God is calling me toward. Am I reading it in the Word?
Okay.
Okay, is there a pattern? I don't mean let the Bible flop open and close your eyes and point a finger. That borders more on superstition than it does any common sense application of God's Word.
Okay.
What I mean is there a pattern emerging as you're reading? You know how you read the Bible, verses will mean something to you one day and something totally different a year later. Are you journaling? Are you writing things down? And I kept getting these messages, like feed my sheep and other kinds of things that were happening. Is there a pattern emerging out of the Word? That has to be there. Number two, and this is the hardest part for me, and I would suggest it's probably the hardest part for most of us. Are you hearing it by His Spirit? Are you sensing God saying something to you? And I don't know about you, Emmanuel, but my mind is so capable of getting flooded with so many different distractions. It's sometimes hard for me to shut it off and get it into neutral and just hang there and just listen and hear God. Lord, what are you trying to tell me? What are you whispering to me? Number two, are you hearing it by His Spirit? Number three, is it whatever it is that you think God's calling you to, is it being affirmed through wise, godly counsel?
Yeah.
So that it's not just me. I'm spreading it out, and I've got other people in my life that love the Lord and love me and know me. Are they affirming that this is a direction that I should go? And then number four, is what it is that I'm thinking about doing consistent with current circumstances? In other words, all three of these might line up, but if my circumstances are, I've got a wife and 12 kids, and I think God's calling me to move to Uganda and become a missionary, and I've got nothing, something in the current circumstances department might be out of whack. Here's another one. In the current circumstances, I think I should be doing this, but my wife doesn't. Let me caution the viewers right now. If you are married and your wife is not on the same page with you, I've got some advice for you. You don't do it. That's not your problem, that's God's problem. Your approach is, God, my wife is not really as excited about this as I am, and on the chance that I may be trying to push my motive forward here, she's something you're going to need to deal with. I call for you, Lord, you need to impress this upon my wife so that you called us to be one, so that we can be one together and move forward. That's what I mean by current circumstances. There could be other circumstances as well, family issues, other kinds of things. Until all four of those are lined up, my suggestion is you haven't heard from God. And if you run the risk of it being your own ideas, your own preconceptions, you run the risk of interpreting Bible verses the way you want to interpret them instead of the way God's interpreting them. You run the risk of surrounding yourself with friends who think like you, act like you, look like you, who are giving you the indicators and the direction you want to hear. Is it making sense? So you need to make sure all four of this, and you need to say to God, Lord, I'm not going to move forward until you show me that these are in alignment. And so I did that. I did all of that. I prayed. And I got to the point where I was almost 100% sure that this is the direction that you want me to go, Lord. But there was one thing missing. I was not hearing it by His Spirit. I was not sensing that God was supernaturally revealing something to me that I need to pick up on and go for. And so probably the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me in my life, I'm willing to share with you viewers if you want me to.
Yes! That's why we're here, right?
It was June 4th, 1994.
Okay.
My friend who you know, Pat McGuire, 6 months earlier, he knew that I was looking at starting a ministry to men. In fact, he worked for me for the first few years of our ministry. He's still my producer. He does all my TV stuff and all that. He said, Vince, if you're going to start a men's ministry, you need to go to this meeting up in Denver of the Rocky Mountain Christian Fellowship. I said, who are they? Well, it's a loosely associated gathering of pastors and leaders that meet once a month in Denver, and they bring in a speaker. I said, why do I need to go there? He said, well, you need to meet them. You need to network with these people. I said, okay. I put it on the calendar. The day came to go, and I'm headed to the phone to call Pat to cancel. I didn't feel like calling. And on my way to the phone, I had what some people refer to as like a check in your spirit. It was like the Lord saying, you need to go. Oh, okay. So I called Pat. He and his wife, Cindy, same name as my wife, They came by, and just the three of us drove to Denver when we got to this meeting. It was a huge hall, and there were only 80 people in it. So it was a big, big room, only 80 people. We were sitting around tables. I didn't know anybody. Got to meet a few people. Pat and Cindy and I are sitting kind of at our own table, kind of way in the back of the room.
Yeah.
And so the speaker gets up, and he introduces the person who's going to bring the message. And his name was Mark DiBernardo.
No, it doesn't.
Well, the first thing I know is he's ethnically advantaged, like a guy like me. Yeah, okay, so he's a Python. So anyway, they introduced Mark DiBernardo. I've never heard of the guy, but they introduced him as a prophet from Florida.
Okay.
Now, when they introduced him as a prophet, they were introducing him as a prophet in the power gift sense. In other words, he kind of foretells of the future, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what happens to you when someone's introduced as a prophet, but let me tell you what happens to me.
Okay.
And it's not because, by the way, that I don't believe God speaks through people, because I believe he does. But I've seen so much garbage and so much abuse of that, what they think is an office. My attitude is, if you call yourself a prophet, you're probably not one. That's just my attitude because of all the abuse of that I've seen.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I've got tentacles coming out, man. Yeah, right. That's my attitude.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mark DiBernardo shares for about 40 minutes. And at the end, he told us all that God told him to come here to this gathering and prophesy over pastors who had churches with less than 75 people. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of odd. Yeah. But I do know that pastors with small churches that haven't reached the century mark kind of struggle a little bit. So I thought, well, let's see what he does. So he gets all done. And I'm technically I'm ordained. Well, actually, I wasn't ordained at that time, but technically, yeah, I was. I was ordained under Every Home for Christ. So, but I wasn't pastoring a church, so I didn't think he meant me. So he asked those pastors to stand. There were 8 of them. I counted them. And he says, anybody here with their wives? And a few wives stood up. So he comes down off the platform and he goes to the tables, right to those people, and starts prophesying over them one at a time. And I'm watching this, and it was like the hair on the back of my neck. Now remind you, I am negative, but the hair on the back of my neck is sticking straight out. He is nailing stuff. And it wasn't generic stuff, like he sees a wedding ring on somebody's hand and says, God told me that he wants to work on your marriage next month. Give me a break. What marriage doesn't he want to work on next month? It wasn't anything like that. It was hard-hitting. It was specific. It was information there's no way he could have known. Men were visibly shaking. Wives were weeping. It was like, are you kidding me? Wow. What is this? He's going around. He's prophesying. And so I'm sitting there. Nobody knows I did this except me and God. Okay. Here's what I did. And I'm going to act it out for you, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did. So I bowed my head like this. Pat didn't know I was doing. And I said, Lord, it's me again. Lord, listen, I know you're probably kind of tired of hearing my whining and hearing my fears and all the things that are keeping me from stepping out. You're probably tired of hearing that. And, Lord, and I get this picture, by the way, of the Lord up in heaven looking at me just going, this guy. When's he going to get it, And so I keep on going, and I say, Lord, I'm scared, Lord. I don't know what to do. I just need a sign. All these other things are lining up, but I'm not hearing from you, Lord. And so I said, Lord, listen. I know that you didn't send this Mark guy here to prophesy to me, Lord. I know. However, if, okay, I'm making a deal with God. If somehow, some way, you would allow this guy to have a word from me in this very meeting, I promise you, Lord, that will be it. And I stopped my prayer, and I looked up, and I actually felt foolish. I mean, come on. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, man, what did I just do? I mean, God must be looking at me and thinking, oh, what's going on? So anyway, Mark DiBernardo runs out of time. He goes back up to the platform, and he apologizes to everybody. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. We have to close the meeting. But if any of you want to stay behind, I'll be happy to talk with you afterwards. That's fine. So he's up on the platform, and we're all bowing our heads. Now, my back is to him. Okay, and he's probably, 100 feet away. He's way up in the front. Okay, so he's in the middle of his closing prayer, and all of a sudden, he stops, like mid-sentence. just like this pause. The longer it goes,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes more and more uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
People start like, yeah, what's going on? Is he having a heart attack? What? I mean, people are wondering what's going on. Just sitting there. The next thing I experienced was a hand on this shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
That man walked directly from that pulpit to my table.
Mm-hmm.
My back is to him. He's never seen me in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Puts his hand on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I look up. Now everybody in the room is watching.
Mm-hmm.
I look up at him. He looks down. He sees my badge. It says Vince. He said, Vince? And I said, yes. He said, God just interrupted me. He says, I've never had this happen in any meeting I've ever been in. You need to know this. But God just interrupted me in the middle of my closing prayer and told me to come over to your table and give you a word. Yeah. I was numb. He made me stand up. And I don't know why he did this, but he says, come with me. Pat and Cindy were right there. He come with me. He takes me to the center of the room for whatever reason. And then he turns me around in the center of the room and he does this. I mean, that hard, okay? God is stirring the gifts in you. Okay, and you know we have a gift test in our ministry.
Yeah.
On the natural gifts that are found in Romans.
Mm-hmm.
He names the 1 and 2 top 2 scored gifts that I score in every time I take the gift test. You figure the mathematical odds of that alone, it's scientifically impossible. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the mathematical odds. He nails them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes down a list of every single specific fear I had for starting this ministry. He even names the family members that are going to come from California and work for me for the first year who were in the military, who by some miracle 6 months later got relocated and actually started working for me. He went through this whole list, okay, and I'm standing there and I get this picture of God up in heaven going, anything else you want, Dakioli? Or is that going to be enough for you? Okay, so I go home. What? Share that with Cindy?
Yeah.
That was the turning point. That was when
Wow.
I knew that I knew that I knew
Yeah.
that it was safe to move forward. Listen, everybody, please. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people run down rabbit trails and go places they have no business going because they feel or sense that there's something. And oftentimes, honestly, it's driven by our pride more than it is by any common sense application of what God's trying to convince us of.
Yeah.
And so the caution is, I'm not. Why am I sharing that story? Because I'm not saying that God's going to show up to you in that kind of a profound way. I think He did that with me because I needed it. I'm so thick-headed, I needed it.
Yeah.
But I'm also, I can tell you this. I can't tell you how many times I've shared or listened to stories from other people like me that I've found stories every bit as profound as that one.
Wow.
God, if you're faithful and you pursue God with all your heart and you're careful to make sure that you're thoughtful about lining up these things and you're taking into consideration your relationships, He will show up and He will show you exactly what you're supposed to do.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow.
That's my story and I'm sticking to it. So you want to know what happened since then?
Yeah.
See, that's your next question, isn't it?
He figured me
Yeah,
out.
I mean, come on. What kind of an interviewee would I be if I didn't know what you were looking for? No. So that was in '94, man.
Wow.
In '94, we started. We spoke for Promise Keepers a few times, but we had our own curriculum that we developed. Our Men on Target seminar. We got. I was one of the original founding members for the National Coalition of Ministries to Men in America. That's all the ministry to men leaders in America coming together back in the mid-90s.
Wow.
So I was very involved with Ministry to Men in America all these years.
Yeah.
Been going out doing a lot of conferences and stuff like that. But honestly, probably the first 15, 20 years of doing that, because I'm basically a hired gun.
Yeah.
I mean, they call me up because they hear, well, you got a good message or a good speaker and all that stuff, which honestly are not that important. What's more important is, what your heart is and how you connect with people. And so I got, it was probably the loneliest 15, 20 years of my life, because I in the business world, I had like thousands of employees, and if I got lonely, I'd call a staff meeting. I mean, I had people. In the business, in the ministry in the early years, you're kind of doing it yourself.
Yeah.
It's just hard. And so, but I also got to the point where I realized, and I coined a term, I have two terms, or one's a quote, and the first one was a term that I coined years and years ago, that says we are, in our culture, we have a tendency to event people to death. And what I mean by that is we seem to think that just because someone attends an event, their life is going to be transformed. And that events don't have any transformative power.
Yeah, that's
Reading
true.
a book is an event. A Promise Keeper rally is an event. A church service on Sunday morning is an event. That's not going to transform your life.
Mm-hmm.
A wedding ceremony is an event. It's not a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It takes work. It takes a process. You need process-driven strategies, not event-driven strategies.
Mm.
You don't teach advanced calculus to a first grader in the same way that you don't help a man understand how to deal with anger until he first understands how to deal with fear. There's a precept upon precept approach toward building anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make disciples just by throwing them in an auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be deliberate.
Yeah.
Okay, so knowing that, that's when we developed OnTarget Institute, which
Okay.
is dedicated to curriculum,
Okay.
process-driven strategies, helping men get into what is my second, and the only quote I really have that I really am proud of says that it takes a relational environment in order for truth to become transformational. Let me repeat that. It takes a relational environment in order for truth to become transformational. If you're watching this right now and you're all by yourself and you're on your phone, you will get 10% out of this that you would normally get if you were in a group of young men or women right now watching this interview, and then after you shut the phone off, having a dialogue or asking questions like, what are the one or two things that stuck out in that interview that has the most meaning to me? That's where life change happens. It happens in the context of a relational environment.
Wow.
We don't have a truth problem.
Yeah.
We got the best truth since Jesus walked planet Earth, but it begs the question, why is truth alone not transforming lives? It's because we don't know how to process that truth.
Wow.
In a healthy relational environment.
Wow.
If you are part of our AIM on Tuesday mornings, you'll know that at the end of every session, we move from life implication to life application. There's a reason for that.
Okay.
What is the life implication of not dealing with this in the right way? And then now, how do I apply this truth in my life? And when you discuss that in a healthy relational environment, that's where you grow. And so that's kind of been the transitions that we've been going through in our ministry, is recognizing the importance of really being deliberate about making disciples. That's one of the things I like about Pastor Steve and our church, the Road to Chapel Hills, is that we have kind of a take no prisoner mentality when it comes to being deliberate about observing people that are actually growing. That's why AIM is so important. AIM, by the way, stands for All In Men. It's just a Tuesday morning group that's growing a lot. Where men are getting serious about life change.
So how about now? Now how old are you now?
74. Listen, I know what you're thinking. I can tell what you're thinking right now. There's no way! Oh, I was born when I was 12. It's very painful for my mom, but that's why I look the way I do. And so anyway, that's 74.
This guy, right?
And they did a TV program, by the way. I think you might have seen the.
You haven't watched it.
That was Significant Living was the name of the program, and what they were doing was they did Jim Daly from Focus on the Family. They did me. They did a few other people that are kind of getting up there in our years, and they were wanting to know. What's retirement? Why don't you retire? Why do you just keep going? Retirement is ridiculous. I mean, there's no such thing as retirement. We got work to do until we take our last breath. Okay, and so I feel as good now as I did when I was in my 40s or 50s.
Wow.
I have discovered though that anybody that says they can do in their 70s what they did in their 30s, didn't do much in their 30s. I figured that out.
It's true.
Yeah. Right now, as you know, I'm on crutches. I have foot surgery. It does not feel good.
So, what is the future for OnTarget Ministries and Vince Dacchioli?
Well, right now, my wife and I, you know this, the viewers wouldn't. My wife has had some health issues that miraculously she's been healed from. But we were in California for a short term because it was at sea level and it was easier for her to breathe there. But now we're back here. And that's how I got connected with Pastor Steve. Didn't really know Steve, but when he heard that we were coming back here and we were bringing our ministry back here, he asked if I would consider coming on board as his executive pastor and helping him with the church. And when I heard his message and how God had humbled him through his journey, I was really taken by that. And I thought, wow. And the other part of it is, he's one of probably 5 to 10 men in America that I would have on a short list of pastors who get it when it comes to ministry to men. He has his own men's ministry called Worship for Warrior, so that attracted me. So not only am I able to be there and through the grace of God be able to use my background to help emerge what's going on in our church and build a team there, but also as we work together more and more in the area of men's ministry, I'm thinking that this could be a natural transition for my ministry to kind of fold in with what he's doing. Possibly in the future there might be a way for us to continue what we're doing through his leadership, and then because I don't really have a succession plan in mind. My thought was, God, when you're done, maybe you're done. But we're praying now, Lord, if there's something more you want us to see here, Pastor Steve and I, please show us. And so more and more that's what he's doing. That's how AIM came about, by the way. It became a hybrid of what we used to do here in the Springs through OnTarget Institute years ago. We had 250 guys every Thursday morning.
Wow.
Yeah, that was over at Woodman Valley Chapel, and it was really one of the healthiest things we ever did in our ministry. So that's what we're trying to grow now with AIM. But we're doing it kind of in concert and in partnership with each other.
That's amazing.
So we don't know exactly what the future holds, but I do know one thing. That God would say, I know what the future holds. Your job is singular. Stay close to me. Because the future is just heating up. It's just, the world around us is looking more ugly every day. And the secret to everything is to stay close to him.
Wow. So thank you, Vince. Before I let you go, I'll have you pray for us here and everybody listening who are trying to find their way.
It would be a great pleasure. Lord, let's just bow our hearts right now. And Lord, I pray right now that there are people that are listening to this interview right now. They've got questions. And I know deep down in their heart, the desire of their heart's the same desire we all have. We really want to know, number one, if you're real. Okay, and there are some people who are maybe listening to this or watching this right now, and they may be questioning that. They may be kicking the tires of Christianity. They really need to know this is real. From those questions, Lord, all the way through to people that have been walking with you for years that are simply looking at what the next step in their journey might be, I pray you would visit them today, even in the context of this interview and in the middle of the substance of this prayer, that you would speak to their hearts and help them understand, number one, how precious they are in your sight, that you're crazy about them, that you love them from the depth of your heart, and that you do have a destiny, you do have a plan for their life. I pray, Lord, as they read the Word, which makes the promise that it is not only a light unto a light to my feet, but a lamp unto my path. Lord, that it's not only going to reveal their daily steps to you, but it is going to be that bright light focusing on the destiny, the pathway that you have before them. That as they understand the importance of being in your Word and crawling up in your lap and hearing from you, that it is only through that they'll discover the destiny for their life. I pray you convict them today and bring forth commitment in their lives today for them to enter into that process, that they might fully enjoy a relationship with you that will end in understanding the destiny that you have before them. I pray you'd visit every single person in the sound of my voice right now and give them a supernatural sense of joy and peace in the knowledge that you are their God, you are on the throne, and you are excited about the next season in their journey. And we give you all the honor and glory for what you're doing right now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen, brother.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, we all have a story. What's your story? Bye-bye. Thank you for joining my show and listening to the interview that I just had. Come again next time when we have another amazing interview. And in the meantime, subscribe and follow me on social media so that you can keep in contact with me and see what I'm doing throughout the weeks that are coming up. Thank you.